Today, we are honored to have Emille Bryant, a visionary entrepreneur, coach, and author whose work centers around the Japanese concept of Ikigai, finding purpose and meaning in life. Emille has built a business around this philosophy, helping people and organizations discover their true calling and align their efforts with their passions. In a world where entrepreneurs are often pulled in a million directions, Emil believes that discovering your Ikigai is crucial for long-term success and personal fulfillment. We'll dive into how he's applied this concept into his own business and why it's more important than ever for business owners today. Emil, thank you so much for being here.
Mateo, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you on your podcast and to spend time with you. It's morning time for me here where I live, which is right outside the Washington, D.C. area, but I am incredibly energized. I had a great meditation this morning, so I started my day with good thoughts and good energy, and now it's just a matter of getting the right conversation going with you.
I love it. I love it. I didn't meditate this morning, but I did exercise. And so I started with positive vibes and that energy that, exercising gives me. My meditation happens more at night after I put my kids to sleep. And it's more
Sure.
about playing piano or, a little bit of soft drums, etc. That's how I get there. But more about you. Emil, what initially drew you to the concept of Ikigai and how did it resonate with you personally?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So I lived in Japan when I was in the United States Air Force for almost 3 years. And I was exposed to the concept through just walking around and observing life. I lived there in the early 2000s. And what I observed was the Japanese were intensely motivated, intensely passionate, intensely focused on whatever it is they were doing. So I remember I was with my family and my children were young at the time. They were 8 and 10 years old. And we were out in Tokyo, walking around, just sort of exploring, just seeing the city. It was new to us. Tokyo is the kind of city that's always new to you. You can be there for a lifetime and still discover things you didn't know existed. So for 3 years, every chance we got, we went downtown to into Tokyo. We lived at Yokota Air Base, which is on the outskirts in a place called Husa Province. And so every chance we got, we would just go down, and sometimes we look for something specific. Other times we just look, right? And this is one of those times when I was just looking, and we were just in awe of all the beauty and wonder that Tokyo offers. And while we were walking, we watched this high school archery competition, and it was with the traditional Japanese longbow. So there were these young women and young men who were competing, and it was in a space where as you walk by, you could actually see the competition. So I watched for several minutes until my children got a little antsy, but even they were transfixed by it, because the way they teach and practice the traditional longbow, it's a meditation. And that's when I discovered something about Japan that I didn't know before, that I didn't really understand. And that was, no matter what it is that they're doing, they become it. They become the activity. They become the moment. And those teenagers were so calm and so meditative as they focused on getting the arrow onto the target. It was lovely. And the traditional Japanese longbow is almost 2 meters long. So it's a really difficult instrument to operate, very powerful bow from Japan's history. And when I was there, I didn't know the word Ikigai, but I had discovered the concept of it. I saw it. I saw that the purpose for that moment was completely where the bow, the arrow, the target, and the archer were one. And that was what I reflected on later when I wrote my book, Start with a Sparkle. So as I go through, I'm chronicling several events that helped me understand my Ikigai. And my book, Start with a Sparkle, you can find it on Amazon. It really sort of took all of these experiences and wrapped them into a narrative that helped me personally understand. And of course, the reader now can follow along. And that was a seminal moment for me, understanding exactly what Ikigai was by seeing it exhibited in person.
Wow. It's an amazing story, and so many questions I could ask as a follow-up. But um and it reminds me as well of when you were watching those youngsters practice the bow and everything, uh the chicken send me high theory of flow, right? And that
Yes,
moment of getting into the flow and a perfect balance between the challenge and your skills, but also kind of loving the process, right? There's a lot. I mean, to me, Japanese are like masters of loving the process of getting better little by little by little by little, right?
absolutely.
And not
Agree.
just getting crazy about their end result, but the process to get there, right? The beauty of the process and the beauty of the discipline within the process. But you will tell us more, I'm sure. So you are getting that, it's sparkle, but how did you decide to build a business around Ikigai, and what was your process for bringing it to life?
Absolutely. And Mateo, you are asking some really good questions that I'm having to kind of unpack a lot of words that I say. So I'll be very explicit in this part of the conversation so you can follow. When I first struck out on my own for business, it was 2016. I had helped a friend with a congressional campaign. We didn't win, but we had made some significant strides. So I was really excited for the potential of that, of my friend, entering into politics and having great ideas to help the state and help the community. So I come from that, and I had taken a leave of absence for 6 weeks from my job. So over the years prior to that, I left the military in 2012, and I had worked a series of jobs, culminating with a small business that was a federal government contractor. And I had a lot of autonomy with that job. They'd let me do my own thing. As long as I met the client's needs, they were very respectful of my creativity and my process of innovation and the way I think originally. But I found myself having to ask permission to visit my children who were with their mother in California while I was out in the Washington, D.C. area. And it wasn't harsh. It wasn't mean spirited. They were very accommodating. I needed to visit my children, and I would say, hey, I need to take some time off. They're like, as long as your portfolio is, up to date and your clients are happy, take all the time you need, and, come back when you're ready. And if you need to work remote. So my ability to do work was not in question, Mateo. What was in question was my need to ask. And for the first time in the 4 years since I had left the military, I finally got it. I didn't want to be under someone else's permission to live my life how I chose. And for those 4 years that I was working for other organizations, Fortune 500 companies as a consultant on large government contracts, software implementations, project management, program management, you name it. I had really, when it comes to consulting, I did risk management. I did all sorts of different things, and it was really wonderful. But what I wasn't getting was the autonomy, the time autonomy to just know that it was my time to do that. So after that congressional campaign, when I had to come back, they asked me to kind of explain some things that I had left open-ended. And I just knew if I went back and explained those things, I would fall back into the vortex of working for someone else. So right then and there, Thanksgiving 2016, I quit. I said, I can't come back. I'm sorry. The leave of absence is extended indefinitely. And fortunately, the business owner I worked with was encouraging all of us to go out on our own sooner or later. He was encouraging us. So he was mad. Don't get me wrong. I'll shout out Rashad Howard at Epigen Technology, one of my favorite people in the world. he was very understanding and very upset. He was upset because I was such a great asset to the organization, and he wanted, me to continue working with him and close out the things that I had open and all the things that needed to happen. And I totally respect his willingness to let me go, because he was conflicted. He himself had pushed us to try our own thing, do our own thing, step away from the mothership. Yet at the same time, he was also beholden to the responsibilities that he had asked me to take on. So yeah, he was mad. And so we're still dear friends to this day, and we work together in business because he understood that I was at that crossroads. So I started a company called Emille Bryant Presents. And I will not go into the very convoluted value proposition I was presenting to the market, because it was a massive failure. Not only did I not know what I was doing, but I didn't know my market. I didn't know how to reach my market. Had I known them, I didn't have a good handle on my product. So everything you can do wrong in a service-oriented business, I messed it up. So 2.5 years of wallowing in my failure, learning. And I was taking classes and seminars and webinars, and I was getting myself really up to speed on the business of business. Except everything I was learning and practicing was someone else's lesson. They weren't my lessons. So 2.5 years of this, spinning my wheels, frustration, my phone not ringing, my emails not coming in, my advertising not working, my money, my revenue is not coming in. I sat down, looked myself in the mirror, and I said, okay, you are not following your passion here. You're doing things all wrong, and you're not even living up to the values you wrote in your own book. So I sat down with myself. I took a week, I unplugged everything, and I revamped the entire business, soup to nuts. And I came up with Go Ikigai LLC, which is the current business I'm in today, which now is 5 years old as of July of this year. And the reason why I'm much more successful now is because I went back to my Ikigai. The reason why I wake up in the morning, I defined it clearly, Mateo. I defined it so clearly, crystal clear. And then I began to work on how to articulate that to the world as a value proposition. That Ikigai, which I wrote down in my book, became the genesis of the business that I run today and the genesis of how I treat my clients. If you have a good understanding of your Ikigai, whether it's your personal or your business's Ikigai, you can build around that the most amazing products and services and delivery of those products and services that transform your business. And that's what I learned by doing it myself and going through the frustration of someone else's lessons becoming my own, instead of me customizing all of my learnings for my own business and my own needs.
Very good. Thank you. It's an amazing story. Define Ikigai for the audience, right? I mean, many of us know or have an idea or think we know. Maybe we think we know what Ikigai is, right? And maybe we don't have it right. So define Ikigai for the audience.
Sure. So it's a Japanese word many of us know, and some people translate it as purpose, and that's a more literal translation. But the concept of Ikigai actually grew out of Okinawa, Japan, right? So that's the blue zone where the longest lived people on the planet are. So Ikigai, when you properly translate it colloquially, when you start with the more Okinawan presentation of the concept, it is the reason why you wake up in the morning. And I love that versus the word purpose, because purpose is very transactional. But the reason why you wake up in the morning is very personal. It's very much, something that gets you out of bed. So if you go to Okinawa, and I've been to Okinawa, and you see the people down there, they wake up for bonsai trees. They wake up for karate do. They wake up for running 4 or 8 miles in the morning. And I ran and walked and was passed by some 90-year-old individual who's just shuffling, but they're shuffling for 8 miles, and they're not going to go fast, but they're going to go far. And they live for, that's the reason why they woke up, was to get those miles in. Others, they wake up so they can learn a few more words of English. And my wife at the time was teaching someone who, for the pure joy of learning English, was continuing to learn English. And all they did was have tea twice a week and talk in English. That was her Ikigai. Every time I encountered a Japanese person, probably over the age of 40, they knew why they woke up every morning. So the concept of Ikigai is that reason that motivates you to get out of bed. The first chapter in my book is leap out of bed every morning, because that's how I live my life. I really do leap out of bed every morning because I have my Ikigai. I have that reason that gets me out of bed and doesn't make it easy for me to hit the snooze button.
Now, I am finding that maybe my preconception of Ikigai is not right, because there's a lot of posts in LinkedIn and many other places that they do like the concentric circles, right? And so Ikigai, they show it as the reason why you wake up in the morning, but also something that you're very good at and something you can make money out of, and something like you can dedicate your life to, like, and you know, when
Absolutely.
that you hit. So, but you're mentioning people that they just want to learn a little bit about English. And so let's now talk about Ikigai and business, and how you mix the both, right?
Sure.
Like that person that is learning a few more words in English, or the one that is running 8 miles, they are not making a living out of it, I assume, right?
They are not. And so the business application, and this is where I specialize, is sort of translating this from this more esoteric concept of just waking up in the morning to a lifestyle and then a business and a business opportunity. So since we're on a more business focused podcast, I'll be very explicit. The first thing that I do when I work with someone is I help them understand why they wake up in the morning, whatever that is. And that has to be a foundational part of their success. We cannot separate work and life, right? This is something that if we do this, we lose the potential for great harmony, right? So people focus on work-life balance. I do not. I focus on work-life harmony, because you're a musician. I see the instruments behind you. You understand that a bad note, it really isn't a bad note. There's just, as Thelonious Monk said, there are no bad notes, only bad connections, right? So what we're always doing is putting together the connections between notes that bring harmony to our life. So work is a note, family is a note, exercise is a note, good nutrition is a note, your business's delivery of products and services is a note. So we're always trying to harmonize these notes. Sometimes the bass is going to be louder than the treble, and perhaps the snare is going to run the time versus the bass drum. There's going to be different harmonies in our different eras of our life. You have younger children. That's a note that you're always bringing into harmony. So when we understand this concept of harmony, now we can put Ikigai in its proper context. For business, what we want is a business owner who says, I know why I wake up. Now let's shape your business around that. So one of the things I do to discover Ikigai is I ask people to go back in time and look at their most intense experiences and memories. Because what happens is your veneer, your fake personality, the one you use that you present to the world, that begins to melt away under pressure. So we want those intense experiences and memories to be the core of your Ikigai, because when I ask you to build a business, guess what you're going to face over time? Intense pressure. So if we start with who you truly are, and we understand what you're truly made of, and we understand where you truly are, what you're built of, what your reason for waking up is, then I can not build a fake or business that's going to waver under pressure, but rather you can double down under that pressure and still be confident that you can deliver product and service over time. Now let's build out the business around that Ikigai. What are the things that you can bring or monetize to this reason you wake up every morning that allow you to prosper? So this might be a product or a service, or it might be a way of delivering product or service. It might be the development of a product or service. You may have to bring in a business partner or a co-founder to help you with the product, service, delivery, or development of product or services. So we begin to shape this business environment around that core reason for waking up every morning, recognizing that the gaps can be filled by either learning or other resources, including other people. Now we do this over and over again, and we expand our business to the point where we're confident that each day we wake up, we know why the business exists, we know our contribution to it, and we know how our market or our customer prospers because of our delivery of this innovative product or service. So it's a step-by-step build up from that reason, but not necessarily with that reason as the core business proposition, but it's definitely interwoven into that core business proposition.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And hearing you speak, if I think about my Ikigai, you can see it, right? Music for me is the why I enjoy my business so much. Part of it is because it allows me to have a lifestyle where music can be a part of it, and where I can, work from home 3 days a week, and I'm near to my drums, my piano, my guitars, whatever, right?
I love it.
They are there, right?
That is amazing.
And I don't hide it, right? Going back to what you were saying in terms of, will I be happy if I had to hide this, or if I had to go super corporate and go work 10 hours a day on a corporate environment and not be able to talk about music because maybe it will be something like weird in that environment? I wouldn't be happy. And the software industry where I work, and the company that I built around the software industry, it's the complete opposite, right? I mean, it's a place where it's super okay to just, I think it's super okay everywhere, and work is changing, and the way that we, mingle both things that you were saying, it's becoming more acceptable, right?
Yes.
Maybe 20 years ago, talking about your hobbies at work would be like, don't mix things, right? And nowadays it's a different thing. And I don't know, I remember somebody when I was starting all of this telling me, hey, are you sure you want to take the calls with that background? And I'm like, I am sure, because that's me, and because it's opening up conversations. It's actually the opposite. It's enabling me to, someone gets on the call, they know about me, they know I'm not hiding anything, and they actually know something that I like, and it can spark a conversation right away, right?
I love that. I think that's brilliant, Mateo. And my background is one of my brands. It's my core brand, Bullseye Ikigai. For that very reason, like, my life is about my business and my business is about my life. There's no separation because it's all life. And if you hide or try to mask part of your life, it comes out in other ways, in ways that you cannot necessarily control. So for me to hear you talk about, yes, the businesses that prosper in the 21st century, especially post-COVID, are the businesses that understand how to allow their workers to be brilliant. That doesn't mean necessarily remote work, but it does mean allowing your workers, to the extent that your delivery of products and service can manage it. And this is where management has to become even more innovative than they ever have. Yeah. This is where real leadership has to show up, where we can start to take your personality, your core skills and joys and passions, and transform them into assets for the organization, and allow you, if you choose to deliver and bring those to the marketplace, to prosper by delivering and bringing all of that passion and all of that talent and all of that joy to your work. And if that means that, if the business can accommodate working from home, and this is how you can be more productive, the businesses who crack this combination of remote work versus in-office work versus delivery of product and development of product and service, the companies that do that are going to prosper wildly. in the coming decades, because the nature of work is no longer, let me just, beat you into submission, force you to work on a schedule that I created, and I'm paying you, or even if it's paying you good money, and therefore you shouldn't complain and you should be grateful for this job. People are making decisions around what brings them joy. Yeah. And people are willing to take less money or be unemployed longer, or perhaps even commute longer, because they want that sense of joy, that sense of purpose. They want that Ikigai somewhere in their work.
So, Emille, when you are talking to potential customers, what is a prerequisite to be able, because this is a journey, right? You're taking them through a journey. You're becoming their coach, mentor, advisor, guide, right? It's like you're becoming also like it's a little bit of a spiritual guide as well, right? What's our prerequisite for this to work? If someone wants to work with Emille and they are listening to this and they want to reach out to you, they have to be, certain, mind openness. What are prerequisites for this?
For sure. So the first thing is, and let me say this clearly, I am a high touch, high ticket boutique consultant. I do personal consulting and business consulting. Sometimes they're one and the same. Sometimes they're explicit and different. But to work with me, you're willing to set aside the traditional measures of merit, the traditional KPIs, the key process indicators, and all the things that what I call the artifacts from the Museum of Management, right? So these artifacts from the Museum of Management are useful in their space. I'm going to set those aside initially to focus on building that core reason for why we work together, why we exist, why we are building a business. And then as I reintroduce those measures of merit, I will use the different artifacts from the Management Museum to really hone in on what we're doing and why it's working or not working. And we'll use all of those management tools, the leading indicators, the lagging indicators, but you got to be willing to set those aside. So I'm looking for innovative thinkers. I'm looking for people who are uncomfortable with status quo, who are unreasonably ambitious, and people who are willing to dive a little bit deeper into the esoteric and abstract initially, so that we can come back to the concrete with a very clear objective for why concrete matters. What we've done in modern American management is we've chased numbers for so long. We think that chasing numbers is the goal. Right. And chasing numbers is a flaw in business that I see over and over again. For instance, we now have companies, Fortune 500 companies, incredibly successful companies, that are struggling because they no longer have a long-term focus. They feel beholden to their shareholders for every quarter having a specific result, a specific share price, a specific target, and that influences their ability to make good decisions for the health of the company over the long term. We're seeing that with one of the major aerospace companies in the world right now. They made some really profitable short-term decisions that are now turning into long-term nightmares. And that company is a personal favorite. I write about them every now and again on LinkedIn because I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and that company was one of my favorites to watch, and I love their products, and I was watching airplanes fly all the time. So we understand who that company is, but the point here I'm making is when you really want to work with someone like me, you're setting aside those short-term indicators. And I'm okay with people immediately discounting me and immediately saying that's not for me. That's right, it's probably not for you, and that's okay. But for the people who want to dive deep in the esoteric and the abstract, initially, I promise you, when we get back to process engineering, and one of my product offerings is a complete process engineering, from soup to nuts. But the way I get you to process engineering, it's the last of 3 steps, because I got to get to the thought process behind the process itself. I got to get to the reasons why first before I can do the hows and the whats. But once I get the why down, I promise you, your process will look so incredibly innovative and be so productive, because we're now increasing the creativity, increasing the originality and innovation, increasing the likelihood of success, increasing the ability to stick to it through difficult times, and the ability to flex during difficult times, because we've built something that has at its core a clear reason why. If you want a why, come work with me. If you want a what or a how, I might not be your first choice.
Emille, what are some signs that someone may not be living in alignment with their Ikigai? What are some of the symptoms? Maybe someone is listening and they go like, oh, I have it all figured out. It's working perfectly fine for me, right? But what are some of the questions you would ask, like, hey, is it that great?
But Theo, man, you're asking some deep questions, and I'm gonna reach into a bag that I haven't talked about yet. I wrote a course a few years ago called Awaken to Brazen Creativity. And in lesson 1 of that course, I asked the learner to assess their barometer, the thing that they use to measure their life. Let me go back to my life. There was a time when I was in the military where I was very displeased. But I wasn't upset, like angry or sad, as much as I was lost. Like I didn't have an anchor. I didn't have anything for which to strive. And that was because I had achieved everything that I had set out to do well ahead of the timeline I had set for myself. So I had this malaise, this discomfort, this feeling like, everything's okay, but nothing's great. Why isn't it? And that's because I had underestimated my ability to achieve great things. So when I look at someone who's in that space where they are displeased with the outcome, when they're looking at themselves and they say, well, everything's good, but nothing's great. If you're not celebrating something in your life the way the Seattle Seahawks or the Super Bowl champion or the World Cup champions are celebrating that win, if you're not celebrating something in your life to that level, you're probably misaligned, right? There should be something in your life for which you have great passion. And when you achieve something, it sets off fireworks in your life. And you should be willing to have fireworks. So I was at that point years ago, and I had achieved everything I set out to do, but nothing was feeling good. Nothing was feeling like I had done it, whatever it was supposed to be that I had done. And I looked at my life and I said, man, that's because I'm using someone else's measure of success. And that's where I had to go back to the drawing board and really understand what I was asking of myself with my day's effort. And when people feel that way, they can look around and they can say, I have everything I want. I have the right car, the right house, the right spouse, the right family. I have all of the right, I took a great vacation, but nothing is really setting off fireworks in their life. That's where I come in, because I understand that not only have I done that for myself, I've done it for several business owners. And the mission here is to find that reason for that kind of exuberance and then build a life where it's much more common to achieve things that equate to that exuberance. And when we have that in our life and we can strive to it and we can see it, we may not be as materially wealthy as we once were. I had to take a 90% pay cut to start this business, but I am exuberant every day because I get a chance to meet Mateo. I get a chance to do the work I love. I get a chance to help people uncover their Ikigai. It becomes this passion that leads me to have fireworks on a regular basis. I would never live another life without my fireworks exploding weekly, sometimes daily.
I love it. Question: can Ikigai evolve over time? Do you get tired of your Ikigai? a possibility, or once you find your Ikigai, is it that for life?
The answer is yes to both of those questions. And here's how I frame it in my book, Start with a Sparkle. So the subtitle to Start with a Sparkle is Passion, Path, Pinnacle. And those three words are sort of, not just the alliteration with a P, but they're also indicators of where kind of our journeys go. We take our passion, we create a path that leads us to some pinnacle in life. Well, the joy of our life is that over the many decades that we hope to live, we may have multiple pinnacles. We may have multiple passions. We may have definitely multiple paths. So that you start with a passion, define and follow a path that leads to success, we call a pinnacle, does not mean that you are at the last pinnacle in your life. Some of the greatest mountaineers in the world have climbed, several different peaks in the world, right? So they go climb Everest, and then they'll climb Mount McKinley, Mount Kilimanjaro. They'll climb all these mountains all over the world. So just because you climb the highest mountain in the world doesn't mean you're done climbing all mountains in the world. And that's the same for life and business. Just because you reached a pinnacle, you will find a new challenge along the way that will spark an interest that you didn't know you had.
Right.
Perhaps you become a public speaker when you're deathly afraid of public speaking, because when you got to the pinnacle of the last, what that passion asked you to get to, you may discover that in order for you to get to the next pinnacle, the pathway to it will take you through public speaking. So now you confront your fear, you get to the point, and now you're a world-class public speaker. And along that path to that pinnacle of greatness, you may find another passion that you didn't know existed in your life. And so we can live our life discovering over and over again ourselves, new passions, new paths, and new pinnacles.
Beautiful. Emille, I'm afraid to ask this question because of everything that we just said about the harmony between work and life and passion, etc., etc. But what do you do when you're not working, or what else do you do, right? Do you have any hobbies on your free time? Do you like doing like anything that you would like to share with the audience?
Sure. I laugh because I'm actually an okay writer. I had to come to understand that was okay to say that I'm a good writer.
Yeah.
So I write for joy and I write for work, and sometimes the two overlap and
Right.
sometimes they don't. I have 4 different journals. I have a handwritten journal, and I have a journal about, political kinds of thoughts. And then I have a journal about business, and I have a journal about manifestation. So I'm writing frequently every day for my own. I write on LinkedIn about things that I'm passionate about that may or may not necessarily translate to business success. I write joyfully. I read joyfully. I love Black history. I love history. I love politics. But I love the politics of history and the history of politics more than I love like watching the latest news cycle or the latest, election results. What I care more about is, why are we here looking at what we're looking at? So then my curiosity is to find out why a street name exists, right? Why a mountain is named for a certain person, why a certain group of people dominate a certain industry or a certain area. Those curiosities keep me going because I feed my curiosity every day. So yes, I am always like working on something or looking something up. People always laugh and say, the power of the internet's in your hands. I'm the person who actually goes to it. My family says I was Google before Google was a thing because I have this thirst for knowledge, and I love that. So I'm reading, I'm writing, I love jazz. I'm stuck on the classics: Coltrane, Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington. I do listen to modern jazz as well, especially stuff that's infused with a lot of hip hop or a lot of, African-American and urban sort of flavor. I love that sort of melding of the two. I also listen to symphony, and one of my favorite albums of all time is S&M by Metallica, because I love the symphonic sound mixed with metal. So I'm all over the map. musically, I'm all over the map with my curiosity. And so my joy is that I bring all of this to bear when I'm working with a client.
Right.
Because there's no boundary between work and life for me. So I go where my clients take me. And because I keep myself in this mind of always learning and always just insatiable curiosity, I'm always able to work with my clients where they are. And it helps me because sometimes their passion is something I don't know anything about. So I'm learning from them. And now I'm living this life where I'm in a space of like I'm in deep awe of Mateo because Mateo's teaching me so much. So it's all life for me. It's all just living my best life at every opportunity.
Emille, this has been an amazing conversation. I knew it was going to be an amazing conversation, but I have to tell you, I'm energized. You just gave me a lot of energy for my day, for my week. It's really a pleasure that we have this conversation. I'm going to leave you with the thanks, with the let's do this again sometime in the future, but also asking you, hey, if anyone in the audience wants to get in touch with you and wants to talk about whatever, life or business or whatever, how do they go about that?
Sure. So my website is myname.com, EMILLEBRYANT.com. Also my business name, GOIKIGAI, goikigai.com. You can also reach me at brazencreativity.com. You can reach me at my book's name, startwithasparkle.com. So that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I am exclusively on social media at LinkedIn. That's by design. I got overwhelmed years ago by social media trying to keep up with all the channels. I do have a YouTube channel. I do have a TikTok channel. They are sparsely populated, but you can go find videos of me there if you want to learn more about how I think and how I see the world. I actually did a 30-day workbook. So I have a workbook with Start with a Sparkle. I went through the workbook personally, and every day I did reactions to each lesson. So you can find that on YouTube and TikTok. So my goal in my social media presence is to be completely reachable. So being high ticket and high touch, but also accessible, has made for a very interesting combination of clients and opportunities. I love the fact that I do that. And for people who want to work with me, please understand that I'm coming to you. Part of what I do in my business is I come to where you are and work with you individually. So I may not do that for every session, but for one session, for a whole day, you get me. And if you like what you've seen with me today and you want to work with me, reach out to me through my website, emillebryant.com. On LinkedIn, I answer all of my own mail, and I get. And let's talk and let's see how I can come to you and on your timing and in your way, and let's work together. But for me, the joy is knowing that there are people who want more out of life than what their families or their societies have told them. And for them, I want to be a resource. So I'm welcome you. Come on, let's have a chat. I'm really easy to find, and I'm more than easy to talk to.
Thank you, Emille. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mateo. This has been a joy, and I really appreciate you giving me the forum for this. My sister and I run a podcast, and when you're ready, we would love to have you on our show.
For sure.